This is a production of SDPB.
Welcome and thank you for joining us here. I'm Lori Walsh. SDPB is broadcasting live to you today from the floor of the House of Representatives ahead of a joint session where Governor Larry Roden will talk to lawmakers for the first time and really introduce himself to the state of South Dakota as new governor, the 34th governor of the state. I'm here with SDPB's Lee Strubinger. Lee, tell us a little bit about what this week has been like here in Pierre.
Yeah, so yesterday we saw the official swearing in of Governor Roden in the governor's office. It was administered by the Supreme Court, State Supreme Court Chief Justice Stephen Jensen, and really got a chance to kind of ask him a few kind of quick questions as we really go through this kind of historic moment where he takes over the second floor.
He is coming into a very interesting legislative year for a number of reasons. One, in that he is replacing former Governor Kristi Noem, but also because of an interesting budget and revenue picture. Lee, what can you tell us about the transition and what Governor Roden is stepping into?
Yeah, well, I mean, part of that's what I'm going to be listening for this afternoon, right? Does he lay out any kind of specific policies or how he would like to handle the budget? I think what we're going to get is, like you said, an introduction, him saying kind of what has been said already, that he's ready to lead. He's been preparing for this moment for the better part of a year, and more specifically ramping that up within the last month or so. You also have, in addition to an interesting budget year, a lot of brand new lawmakers who have entered into the session. So while we are in the third week of this particular session, there have been a lot of changes in the building. And so I think this will also mark a real moment where session starts to really kind of solidify, where we'll have this new administration with some changes, but not really kind of coming in, and then we'll see how they work with the state legislature. And here is the President Pro Tem, Chris Carr.
Thank you. The joint session of the House of Representatives and the Senate of South Dakota will come to order. Today's prayer will be offered by Reverend Craig Wexler, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Speaker Hansen.
The Lord be with you.
Also with you.
From Hebrews 13, verse 17, we hear, "Obey your leaders and submit to them, for they are keeping watch over your souls, as those who will have to give an account. Let them do this with joy and not with groaning, for that would be of no advantage to you." Most merciful God, we lift up our leadership this day. We give thanks for Kristi Noem as she has served us these past years, and we pray for her wisdom and guidance in her new role with Homeland Security. Give her a courageous heart, a compassionate heart, and wisdom to know what demands are coming from the world and what demands are coming from your divine will. Grant peace and protection over her family as well. Oh Lord, we now lift up Larry Roden as he takes the lead in governing our great state, as we call him Governor Roden. As the baton is passed into his hands, may he hold it firmly with courage and wisdom. May he be guided by your insights and discernment. May he build bridges with those he will encounter each day from here and into the future, and may he uphold the security of our foundations set by brave leaders of the past, foundations of godly values, proper moral compasses, listening ears towards the voices of many, and a steady grasp on knowing what changes may still be needed, and discernment towards the things that should never change. Help him to do it with joy, never with groaning. Let everything he does be to the benefit of your divine will. In your holiest name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
The Secretary of the Senate will call the roll of the Senate.
Senators Beal, Blanc, Carley, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Colbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miskimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Wheeler, and Zickman. Mr. President, we have a Senate quorum.
Thank you. The Chief Clerk of the House will call the roll of the House, please.
Representatives Andera, Arlen, Auk, Elward, Baumüller, Bathke, Baxter, DeGroot, Derby, Duffy, Emery, Fitzgerald, Garcia, Goodwin, Gosh, Greenfield, Halverson, Healy, Heerman, Hyman, Hughes, Hunt, Ismay, Jameson, Jensen, Jordan, Jorgensen, Casson, Kaiser, Cole, Ladner, Lems, Manhart, Massey, May, Moore, Mortensen, Muckey, Mullally, Mulder, Knowles, Norstrup, Odenbach, Overwig, Peterson, Poyer, Randolph, Reeder, Rayfelt, Reimer, Reich, Rice, Roby, Rowe, Schaefbauer, Schwams, Shorma, Sharda Soy, Stevens, Uri Bulk, Van Diepen, Vasgard, Van Huysen, Wahlberg, Weems, Wisegram, Whitman, Speaker Hansen. Mr. President, there is a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Secretary.
Senator Melhoff moves that a committee of 5 on the part of the Senate and a committee of 6 on the part of the House be appointed to escort the Honorable Larry Roden, Governor of the state of South Dakota, to the rostrum.
Is there a second? Thank you. Comments on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor will say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The President announces the escort committee is made up of Senators Melhoff, Perry, Larson, Smith, and Beal, and Representatives Lems, Odenbach, Overwig, Healy, Emery, and Baumüller. My fellow legislators, members of the gallery, it is my privilege and honor today to introduce the 34th Governor of the state of South Dakota, Larry Roden. Governor Roden is a husband, a father, a grandfather, a rancher, and a proven leader in our state. The legislative session is a historic one. It is the 100th time the legislature has gavelled in its annual session to carry out the work of the people. It's also historic as we now undergo a transition from one governor to another. This transition has been smooth, which exemplifies our commitment to an open process here in the state and a character, I think it exemplifies the character of our leaders that we have in both the executive and the legislative branches. It's also noteworthy that Governor Roden joins a long list of past governors who have first served in the legislative branch prior to being governor. Governor Roden was first elected to the state legislature in 2000. During his 16 years as a state legislator, he was repeatedly elected to legislative leadership positions. He focused his legislative efforts on property tax reform, Second Amendment rights, agriculture, and much, much more. In 2018, Governor Roden was elected as lieutenant governor, serving also as the president of the Senate. Governor Roden is a familiar face around these legislative chambers, and many of us have had the opportunity to work with him. He's been a stable presence for us in this Capitol for many years. I personally believe Governor Roden is a genuine in both his action and speech. He's a good man and a great South Dakotan. As Governor Roden begins his term as the 34th governor of our state, this legislature expresses its eagerness to collaborate with him and his administration to advance the well-being of our state and its people. Mr. Sergeant-at-Arms, will you please announce the arrival of the governor of our great state of South Dakota?
Would all of us please welcome the Honorable Governor Larry Roden. Please be seated. Well, thank you for that warm welcome. Mr. Speaker, Mr. President, Supreme Court Justices, constitutional officers, and members of the House and Senate, and my fellow South Dakotans, it is truly an honor to stand before you today as your governor. Before we begin today, I'd like to say thank you on behalf of our state to Secretary Kristi Noem. Kristi has served our state for 18 years in the State House, in Congress, and as our governor. She worked hard and did great things for our state, and it was my great honor to serve with her. She's helping President Trump make America safe again, and we are proud of her and wish her well in that important job. She's still working for us, keeping our nation safe. Please join me in a round of applause to thank Governor Noem. Well, today is a new day, and I'm starting out in a new job. And it might surprise you to know that even as I was lieutenant governor for 6 years, there are a lot of things that the state and the people don't know about the lieutenant governor. So I'd like to take some time to share a few things that you might not know about me. And most importantly, starting off, I'd like you to meet my family, many of whom are here today. My son Cody is here with his wife Liz and their 2 kids, Tally and Josie. My son Tristan is here with his wife Kaylin and their daughter Birkin. My sons Jesse and Reggie are here, and so is my twin sister Lori. Dan and his wife Kathy are here, and many other extended family here in the audience. Would you stand? There's one person in particular that I haven't introduced that I want to introduce. It's my wife, Sandy. She and I have been married for almost 44 years. All of us are only able to serve because of the support of our loved ones. And I know I wouldn't be standing here today without her constant support and encouragement. Sandy is going to be a great First Lady for our state. Please help me welcome Sandy. Sandy. My roots run deep in South Dakota. I was born here, and I will die here. I'm a 4th-generation South Dakotan. My father's grandfather, Alan Roden, came to western South Dakota in 1907. He came to an area in Meade County called Chalk Butte. Union Center, where I live, wasn't founded until 15 or 20 years after that. It was a 4 or 5 day trip to Sturgis for a load of lumber, so they built a 3-room sod house and a sod barn. His son John, who would be my grandfather, homesteaded 2 miles southeast of Union Center. My older brother John, also named after his grandfather, is now on that original homestead. My mother was a Murphy. I'm a 5th-generation South Dakotan on her side. Her family came out west on horses and wagons. They homesteaded in the Two Rivers area, and that's about 20 miles west of Union Center. Some of the original foundations of my family's homestead are still standing today. My father was named Allen after his grandfather. He and my mom Mildred raised 5 kids. My twin sister Lori and I were the 4th and 5th. Mom and Dad taught us the importance of faith in Jesus Christ, and church is still central in my life. They weren't rich by any stretch, but they made sacrifices to send 3 of us kids to Sunshine Bible Academy. That's near Miller. They wanted our schooling to be centered around our faith and our values. My parents also taught us the value of work. Hard work is part of life on the ranch. Even today, I'm still happiest when I'm working with my hands. It's how I relax. When I get home, I head to the shop and I go to work. I make branding irons and custom tools for ranching, among many other things. I like to think about a plan, get it done, and see the fruits of my labor. There's value to working to create something from start to finish. Work ethic is central to what it means to be a South Dakotan. Work is a gift, not a punishment, and we should all treat it that way. I will be asking our cabinet to review all of our social welfare programs. When we offer services and assistance, we should make sure that we encourage people to work and earn their own way, if they can. With the passage of Amendment F last November, my Department of Social Services will work with the Trump administration to get the ball rolling on work requirements for the recipients of Medicaid expansion. Everyone needs a hand up now and then, but we can't make these programs a way of life. And South Dakota CareerLink will be available to these folks to help them find the career of their dreams. We make and keep South Dakota strong when we work together. Growing up in rural South Dakota, you can also learn about the importance of community. We are rugged and fiercely independent, but we look out for our neighbors. Service is a big part of our lives. Service in the military has always been a big part of my family. According to my great-grandmother's biography, my great-great-great-grandfather came to America as aide-de-camp to General Lafayette. He fought in the Revolutionary War. He came here with 4 brothers. All 4 of his brothers were perished in that war. My grandfather John served in World War I. He fought in the Meuse-Argonne offensive, the largest and deadliest campaign in the history of the United States Army. My dad served in World War II, and he fought at the Battle of the Bulge. 2 of my brothers served in the Army, one of them in Vietnam, Dan. That service mentality continued to my kids. My son Cody was a Black Hawk pilot. I'm proud of him for continuing the family legacy of serving our nation. So when I came of age, I also felt called to serve. I signed up with the South Dakota National Guard and served 6 years. As a former Guardsman, it is a great honor to serve as the Commander-in-Chief of the South Dakota National Guard. I've also been active in my community around Union Center. I'm sure that's true of all of you in your own communities. I've been a leader in our church. I served on a board at a local Cenex. For a number of years, I coached women's softball and boys basketball, and I still sing bass in a men's quartet. I served 5 years on the Meade County School Board. In fact, after I got in the legislature, people asked me why I ran for the legislature. I said, it's the only excuse I could think of to get off the school board. There was a lot of truth in that. We've got quite a few first-time legislators this year. And believe me, I know how you feel. I still remember my first year in the State House in 2001. It was Bill Janklow's last 2 years as governor, and I got to learn from great leaders like Matt Michaels and Bill Peterson. My seat was over there, where Carrie Weems is sitting today. In fact, I served with her a couple years after that. When I became majority leader in 2005, I was very intimidated by a long-time appropriations chair. Some of you know him, Jim Putnam. He had so much knowledge and experience. But I learned from him, and we became close friends. I focused on some tough issues during my time as a legislator: property taxes, tax cuts, property rights, protecting the outdoors, the Second Amendment, a lot of the same issues that we'll be talking about this year. And my focus always has been to keep South Dakota strong, safe, and free. Yeah. Thank you. And that's my goal as your governor. I want to work with you toward those goals. I want to keep South Dakota strong. That means strong families, strong businesses, and strong institutions. We will continue to care for families as they start and grow. And that means taking care of both mothers and their children. And it means helping rebuild families that are struggling. Sandy and I have been proud to work with strong families together to recruit more foster families across the state. Strong businesses pay strong wages and will help their employees put food on the table. And strong institutions protect our values and our way of life. And I want to keep South Dakota safe with low crime and respect for law enforcement. My philosophy is the best way to fight crime is to hire more officers, not to increase penalties. Increasing penalties just means we have to build even more prisons. I will support the Trump administration effort to secure our border. I want our families to feel safe in their homes. I want our kids to be safe playing outside. That's the South Dakota I grew up in. Let's keep it that way. And I want to keep our state free. I am extremely proud of the fact that we live in the freest state in a nation founded on the principles of freedom. In South Dakota, we trust our people to make their own decisions and lead their lives as they see fit. We've proven this approach works. Freedom led to our strong economy. Freedom led to record visitors and new residents. And freedom will continue to be our calling card for as long as I am your governor. I'm working with my cabinet and my staff and some legislators on policies to make South Dakota strong, safe, and free. I'll be announcing some of those items in the coming days. I am a common sense conservative. In fact, I was consistently ranked as one of the South Dakota's most conservative legislators. I believe that our rights come from God, not from government. Our Creator endowed us with the unalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And life comes first. I am pro-life. And I am pro-Second Amendment. I believe the government is best that is limited. And I trust our people to exercise their personal freedoms and responsibilities. I've been involved in plenty of very difficult debates in this chamber and in the Senate. Serving here, you learn to deal with all kinds of people. In our state legislature, we can have tough debates, even strong disagreements, and still walk out of the building each day as friends. And I'm very proud of that fact. One of my pillars in this administration will be civility. I want South Dakota to show how politics can and should be conducted. My first year here was 24 years ago. When you look back on your time here, 10 or 20 years from now, I bet you don't remember the bill numbers or the votes. You will remember the people you served with. You will remember the difference that you made in people's lives. So let's all pledge to be civil and work together. We have plenty of tough issues to work on this year. There's a lot of concern about property taxes. That's an issue I've worked on for ever since I came to Pierre. I will convene leadership in the House and Senate and other interested parties to sit down with me and find solutions. I'm aware that eminent domain is a hot issue this session. I'm no stranger to that discussion. I fought for private property rights in this capital for over 20 years. In fact, in 2006, I was a prime sponsor of legislation to reform eminent domain. That was House Bill 1080. That legislation passed the Senate unanimously and passed the House with only one dissenting vote. When we work together and consider all perspectives, we can do great work for the people of South Dakota. Extremist environmental policies coming out of Washington are not good for South Dakota or for our nation. South Dakota must continue to be a state that respects landowners and ag producers. We are the stewards of the land who work day in and day out to put food on the table for us and for the world. I don't just care about farmers and ranchers. I am a rancher. And I don't just care about landowners. I am a landowner. And when my time on this office is done, I'm going back to that ranch. Until you've worked the land under the scorching heat or carried calves inside through a bitter winter snowstorm in the middle of the night, or helped a neighbor when the need arises, or even have been humbled in the times when you yourself needed help, you may not fully understand what it's like to be a steward of the land. The good Lord has blessed my wife, Sandy, and me with a ranch, a home that I wouldn't trade for anything. He's blessed us with good health. Most importantly, He's blessed us with a wonderful family. Our land in South Dakota is a land of opportunity. When we protect opportunity in South Dakota, we pave the way for better jobs for my children and grandchildren and yours. Those opportunities might be on a farm or a ranch, in a small town, or in a big city. Our kids should be free to pursue their dreams, whether they're wearing a welding helmet, scrubs, or a business suit when they go to work. To protect opportunity for all, South Dakota must have a fair and predictable regulations for business. We shouldn't change the rules in the middle of the game. South Dakota can be open for business, and we can offer a fair shake for every family. We should make sure our young people can stay here and work in a fulfilling career field. If we get this right, we can protect our property rights and provide opportunities for our kids and our grandkids. Every South Dakota student should have the opportunity to get the right education for their needs. Like Governor Noem, I support Leader Odenbach and Leader Melhoff's bill to create education savings accounts, and I will work to make sure that neither public schools nor homeschooled families are harmed by these initiatives. This year, we're in a tough budget situation, especially when it comes to ongoing money. Governor's Noem budget, like every governor's budget, is a starting point. I will not be offering a separate budget proposal, but I do want to be part of an open budget conversation with you all. I know there's concern about some of the specifics in the budget proposal, and I will work with our budget office to try and restore some of those cuts. But we have to remember this, that unless our revenue improves, this is a zero-sum game. Budgeting is about priorities. We need to understand that for every dollar we add means a dollar that has to be cut somewhere else. We can find ways to make government more efficient. Like many of you, I am very concerned about the size and scope of the federal government. And I fully support President Trump's new Department of Government Efficiency. In South Dakota, we are very blessed by having a very limited government, but we can do better. I've directed my cabinet to review each of their agencies and identify potential efficiencies. I've also asked them to provide me with options to bring to the Trump administration to make our interactions with federal government more efficient. The federal government needs to get smaller and let us take care of our own affairs. And I trust that President Trump will make that happen. We also need to take action on the prison. Let me tell you, I walked through that penitentiary just a few weeks ago, and it needs to go. It is Gothic inside. It looked like it hadn't changed for decades. There are rooms with concrete crumbling from the ceilings. We are double bunking in tiny cells built for one person. I know there are strong feelings about the plan to build a prison, and I want to work through that with you. But this is way overdue. We've had the foresight to set money aside for the new facility. And by paying cash, we will avoid hundreds of millions of dollars in interest and fees and debt service payments. This is the year to finish the job. As a former legislator, I remember how frustrating it was when communications broke down between the governor's office and the legislature. And I promise you this, I'm not going to let that happen. If you have a question or a concern about something, I'd be happy to try and schedule a meeting. If I can't be available, someone in my cabinet or staff will be. Let's sit down and talk it out. I can explain where I'm coming from, and I can hear where you're coming from. I want to work with you, not against you. My administration will be open, and that includes legislative inquiries and subpoenas. And that goes for the public, and it goes for the press as well. Another pillar of my administration will be openness and responsiveness. I am not going to be hard to find. We have the obligation to protect the privacy of individuals, but we also have a responsibility to be open about the operations of government. And in that same spirit of openness, I want to extend a renewed hand to the tribes. A couple of weeks ago, Chairman Renfield echoed Governor Noem's words. Today, let's reset. Today, let's rebuild. I could not agree more. We've had our ups and downs over the years, but I am asking our tribal leaders to make a fresh start with me. Before Governor Noem left office, the Flandreau Santee Sioux tribe passed a resolution to welcome her back to the reservation and hung their flag in the rotunda the next day. This is a great first step to rebuild trust on behalf of all South Dakotans. You know, it's hard for me to believe how much things have changed during my time in Pierre. When I first came to Pierre, I had a flip phone. To this day, I kind of never wished I'd started texting. I remember that flip phone, the text cost me 25 cents to send one or receive it. And there was a certain representative called Kristi Noem that I'd complained about that. So from that point on, periodically I'd get a random text from Kristi Noem and all it would say is cha-ching. It didn't have the keyboard, so it took me a half hour to send a text. But looking back on that, you know, I think in some ways it wasn't bad. It forced me to stop and think before I spoke. And that's what you're going to get with me. I'm going to think before I speak, and I'm going to be honest and direct. Maybe sometime a little too direct. And there's one more thing I need to talk to you about today. Now that I've moved into the governor's office, I must appoint a new lieutenant governor. But I am not going to make that announcement today. You'll be all right. I want to make the best possible selection for our state. And here's what I'm looking for in the person I select. This individual must be loyal and honest to me and to the people of South Dakota. My choice for lieutenant governor must share my commitment to keep South Dakota strong, safe, and free. And he or she must be a strong partner who will provide me with wisdom and wise counsel to help steer us in the right direction. And he or she must be ready to take over in the event that I'm no longer able to serve as governor. I believe it's happened before. And I want to make a selection who recognizes that under God, the people rule. My lieutenant governor must be worthy of our tremendous people. In closing, it is my great honor to serve as your governor. And I'd like to make one more request of each of you and of every South Dakotan. Please pray for me and my family. We all work hard and try to do our best, but we are nothing without the help of the good Lord. I am looking forward to working with you in the legislature and to getting out around the state to hear from our great people. Let's work together this year. Let's keep South Dakota strong, safe, and free. God bless you, and may God continue to bless the great state of South Dakota. Thank you.
We just heard remarks from Governor Larry Roden. You can hear behind us the thunderous applause for those remarks and the standing ovation and lawmakers. Lee, we're listening for certain things in that speech. Lawmakers heard some of what they wanted to hear, and they did not hear a Lieutenant Governor announcement yet. He said, you'll be okay. What are some of the things that you did hear that you think are significant from that speech?
Well, he called the current men's prison facility Gothic inside, and so I think he's going to continue that priority of trying to get that prison fully funded this year. There is some kind of consternation and a little bit of disagreement on that particular front, but that appears to be something that he's going to be pushing forward for much into the rest of this legislative session. There's a bill to authorize that construction, and so it seems like his administration is going to push for that. He did mention another one of the really big topics that's going on this particular session, which is the use of eminent domain, and particularly he didn't mention liquid carbon dioxide pipelines, but that's what a lot of that change is particularly for. So that's didn't quite get a window into maybe how he would come down on that one, but maybe he's keeping his cards close to his chest on that one. There were a few others. I mean, obviously, his support for the education savings accounts that Governor Noem brought up in her budget address in December, and also a renewed hand to the tribes, where he said he'd like for them to make a fresh start with him. I thought that was big.
Some big standing ovations for the renewed hand to the tribes. I heard the word reset, rebuild. I also heard him say he's not going to bring another budget of his own. They will work with Governor Kristi Noem's proposed budget, but he specifically said he would look for ways to restore some of the things that had been proposed to be cut, with the realization that budgeting is zero sum and you have to find those dollars somewhere. So he said he would think first, speak slowly, be honest, never be hard to find. I remember he talked a little bit about South Dakota being strong, safe, and free, which is something I'm suspecting you will hear him say throughout his tenure as governor. Anything else that you're looking for that was not answered that you think in the next day or two you might hear policies that are more specific roll out from this governor?
Well, he did mention that he has been working on some policies of his own and that those will get announced in the coming days, including property taxes. And let's see. He also said something interesting about hiring more cops but not adding more penalties. So it'll be interesting to see what that looks like going forward as well.
Well, the House is going to switch to being in session here in just a few moments. So we're going to wrap up our broadcast for today here with Lee Struminger. I'm SDPB's Lori Walsh. Thank you so much for joining us.
Legislative coverage on SDPB is supported by the South Dakota Bar Foundation, SDN Communications, Missouri River Energy Services, Wrench Law, and your membership in the Friends of SDPB. Thank you.